Have you ever wanted to play a car-based sci-fi survival game? Or a first-person sci-fi brawler? How about a post-apocalyptic sci-fi survival horror? Or could I interest you in a dark comedy sci-fi space horror? What's that you're saying? Too much sci-fi for you? Well, you're in luck, because we've also got a game that's basically Squirrel Stapler, but also somehow a tower defense, and a PS1 horror title that actually looks like a PS1 game, despite what so many others have tried. What brings all these drastically different games together, you ask? Well, they're all indie games that either just came out or are right around the corner. Hey everyone, Dave or Effie here. I know videos have been a little sparse lately, but that's because I've been putting the finishing touches on my own game. And now that it's finally done, I wanted to check out all the new stuff that I've been holding off on lately. Oh, and I also got this new light that lets me do things like this. Anyways, thanks to Steam's Next Fest, we got an avalanche of new games to check out, so I decided to take a few of them for a spin. From big titles to games you've probably never even heard of before. So without further ado, let's see what games you might be playing in the coming months. Kicking things off with one of the biggest games of the fest, we have Pacific Drive, a game about driving a beat-up piece of junk car through a sci-fi version of the Pacific Northwest. The visuals here are pretty nice, reminiscent of games like Firewatch or The Long Dark. It's clear from playing it that this game has a much bigger budget than your standard indie fare. Obviously you do a fair bit of driving, but I found that most of my time playing the demo was spent on foot, scavenging supplies to fix up my car. The loop of driving around a forest, collecting stuff, and upgrading your car works well enough, but it wasn't very compelling, at least in the short demo. There was a small chase sequence as I was nearing the end of the demo, but 95% of it was slow tutorial sections or looting abandoned buildings. I can't say I'm a huge car fanatic, so that obviously plays a role, but I was just kinda meh on this one. It's very impressively put together, but the demo didn't really manage to hook me. Who knows about the full game though? Anyways, on to the next one. If you've been following my channel for a while, you might remember me mentioning CORPUS EDAX in a past video. For those who haven't seen it before, CORPUS EDAX is a first-person cyberpunk immersive sim heavily focused on melee combat. Think of something like Deus Ex if the core gameplay was punching people clear across the room. It's still in early alpha, but this demo had a lot of improvements over the old version I played, like the neat character creation and menu screens at the start. Of course I had to put all my points into strength, because fighting everyone was my main objective here. In fact, the doctor I met upon waking up made for a great first opponent. Unfortunately the demo was pretty buggy and I got stuck in floors and walls a couple times, having to restart from scratch. Eventually I did make it into the city proper, where I punched someone so hard they no-clipped out of reality and ended up in the back rooms. I wandered around the empty city afterwards, but couldn't quite figure out where to go, so I too walked out of reality before moving on to the next game. Hollowbody is another very highly anticipated game, at least according to Twitter stats. It's sort of like if Silent Hill met Blade Runner, but it happened in the UK. The voice acting and UI were seriously top-notch for a small indie project. The art was pretty nice too, but the gameplay was a step down from that. The demo consisted of walking around an empty neighborhood, which looked nice but didn't really have anything going on. After that, you arrive at an empty apartment building, which consisted of a lot of similar rooms with one or two things of interest in them. You solve some puzzles, loot items, and shoot a few zombies, but it all felt very standard and by the book, as they say. I didn't make any cool or interesting discoveries along the way. The combat was the same old format we've seen in every PS1 game on itch.io, and even the excellent voice actor from the beginning didn't come back. Regardless, it seems this game already has a pretty sizable fan base, and this might be exactly what they're looking for. I don't know what the team looks like for this game, but it's clear they've got a knack for the visual side of things. It's just that game design that could use a little more work, but that could improve in the future. It is just a demo after all. After that, I played a very weird comedy horror game called Mouthwashing. You and a few crew members are making deliveries across the galaxy when something goes terribly wrong. Most of the game takes place after the incident, where your ship seems inoperable, filled with some strange foam blocking off access to most areas. You can walk around the ship, look at things, and talk to the crew members, and it's all presented in a very grim but comedic manner. Eventually you discover that you are shipping thousands of crates of mouthwash, and presumably the entire crew begins drinking them while descending into madness. The demo ends shortly after, so I don't really know where the game's going from there, but it is a pretty silly, well-made experience. There isn't much gameplay to speak of, rather it felt a little bit more like a visual novel, but if you're into this sort of dark comedy horror, it might be one to keep an eye on. Personally, I don't think I'd play a multi-hour game like this, but I appreciate what they are going for in the short format. The next game on my list was actually not a part of the Next Fest, but happened to come out right around the same time. That game being Hamster Hunter, a sort of fan game take on the infamous squirrel stapler, which I've covered a couple times in the past. The developer of this game reached out to me a while back when I was super busy, so I figured now was a good time to check it out, along with all the other projects. As you'd expect, the core gameplay is pretty similar to Squirrel Stapler: hunt hamsters, bring them home, repeat. But that's where the similarities end. In this game, your family is killed by the mysterious Hamster Man, which sets you off on a vendetta against all hamsters. You sell meat from captured hamsters to make money, and then order bizarre gadgets online to catch or kill hamsters in increasingly strange ways. At night, hordes of demonic hamsters swarm your base, and you have to fight them off with a torch and the various machines you've purchased. During the day, you return to collecting hamsters and putting them in your medieval devices to extract information on the elusive Hamster Man. Eventually you find out where he's hiding and basically kill him off screen before the game abruptly ends. It's a weird experience all around. The gameplay loop of collecting money and building a base was a little more engaging than Squirrel Stapler, but the barebones story and medieval devices made it feel a bit more sadistic. Continuing the trend of retro-looking horror games, we have Crow Country. This is yet another highly anticipated title for the countless PS1 horror fans out there. And despite everything else, this game truly does look like it could be a PS1 title. More specifically, it looks like someone took the gold saucer from Final Fantasy VII and made it into a horror game. And while throwback horror is something we've seen 1,000 times before, this game is actually one of the better ones I've come across. The art style is very well done, the environments are dense with interactive objects, and the puzzles are nicely varied without being too vague. You're probably not going to be scared while playing this game, but I do think they nailed a particular style, and I did enjoy my time playing it. Surprisingly, I don't really have that much to say about this one, but thumbs up to the dev team, keep up the good work. But speaking of games that are right around the corner, I have to mention that my game, Ad Infernum, is releasing on February 29th. I've mentioned it a few times in the past, but for the new people, Ad Infernum is a survival horror immersive sim set at an abandoned gas station in the middle of the desert. The video I posted prior to this one is the official release trailer, so instead of me explaining everything about the game, why not go check that out instead? Anyways, after a couple years, I'm glad to have it finally finished up. I plan on keeping up with launch support, fixing issues, and improving the game post-release. But I also plan on devoting a little more time to this channel once things finally cool down a bit. It'll be nice to take a break from constant game dev work to spend some time on a few video ideas I've been kicking around for a while. And aside from my own work, the Next Fest just goes to show how many weird, interesting indie games are right around the corner. Crow Country was probably my favorite of the bunch that I played, but Pacific Drive is undoubtedly going to be the most successful. But all the games had some potential, otherwise I wouldn't have covered them at all. We'll just have to see how they turn out in the future. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on them, but how about you? Are there any games I missed in the fest? Something you enjoyed? Something I should check out for a future video? Let me know in the comments, or come hang out with us on Discord. We can talk about video ideas, Ad Infernum, whatever you want. Links to that, along with every game I mentioned in the video, will be in the description below. Thanks for sticking around, folks, but now I've got a game to release. I hope to see you all in the next one.